since 1993, I believe it was, when Magic Johnson hit his last shot in the All-Star game in Orlando, I had, if I was in an airport and walking by, if it was on in the background noise, I had barely seen any All-Star basketball. Barely seen any All-Star basketball. But I was with a buddy of mine at a bar in Oklahoma City in a new area called the West Side Village, which is really cool. And we watched the three-point shooting contest and the dunk contest on Saturday night. That was a debacle. And the dunk contest was a debacle. And the All-Star game, I didn't mean to. It's like one of those, oh, who put this on my television, where I sat down and literally spent 30 seconds and was blown away by it's not that there wasn't enough effort. It was like the willful disdain for effort, right? There's a difference there. There's a difference there. It's like teachers will tell you this all the time. Like sometimes you just go through the motions and you get a C. You almost have to try and get a D or an F, right? You got to like try these days. And I'm trying to factor in, I don't want to do a show where we're just like, the All-Star game sucks. Let's take some calls. 877-99 on Fox. Doug Gottlieb in for Colin. Yeah, the All-Star game sucks. The NBA sucks. I'm never going to watch it again. Like that's there's no level of productivity there. There's nothing interesting there. We can all agree that the All-Star game sucks. And I think there's a portion of it where you go, hey, we operate under this premise that basketball is somehow like baseball or somehow like football, where if you were to go hard and actually try, there's a risk of injury. Is there a risk of injury? Yeah, sure. But, I mean, there's just as great a risk of injury, in all honesty, of all of those dunks, because all of those landings, you land wrong one time, and you have it's the same risk of injury. Generally, guys are not hurt in the NBA in contact moves. They're just not. And it's not like pitchers in baseball where you can throw out somebody's arms. And it's not like football where you can get a concussion or you can tear an ACL or break a leg or whatever. Like, show me when that's happened. So I do think there's a portion of this, like we've tried to, we haven't tried to, we've clearly made athletes believe that they're putting themselves at some sort of risk if they're competing in their chosen sport outside of championship level competition. Right? But I think there's something more at play here. The first thing is it's very, very obvious that it feels like none of these guys, none of them, truly understand how they make their money. It's one of those things that when you're in business, it's like everyone usually figures out, all right, what's the most I can make on a contract? How do you do that? Well, you get leverage. You get multiple offers, and you try and the job you want the most, you try and get the most out of. Doesn't mean you always take top offer. Right? But then once you get in the business, everyone I know would encourage you, how do we actually make money? Right? How do we actually make money? And yes, the TV deals, which, by the way, the NBA is ongoing and negotiating, like, do we not know that that's, that this is a bad look? Don't get me wrong. The new TV deals, I'm sure, are going to be, 2x or 1.5x of the previous deal. Because even though it feels like cable is dying, there's always going to be a streaming service now, that needs a volume of live sports. Like, that's really the play here. The NBA is a volume play for whether it's ESPN, ABC, or if NBC gets back in, TNT, it's a volume. Right? It's 2.5 hours on a given night. They can do wraparound shows. They give you lots of volume. Back-to-back double headers, that gives you an entire night of programming. And while the numbers may not be astronomical, they're solid. You get like 1 million people, and you get the right demo. Young men like to sit down and watch, and they gamble on it. But when you give no effort in what's supposed to be the celebration of the sport. Right? Remember, that's like a corporate event. They bring around all the executives. They bring around all the sponsors. Hey, look at all the shiny glitz and glamour. And there's LeBron, and there's Steph Curry, and there's Giannis, and there's Jokic, and there's Luka, and there's Tatum, and there's all these other magnificent, magnificent basketball players. This is not me telling you these guys can't play. It's the frustrating part is they're not even trying. Like, it's not even fun. It looked like, if you play pickup basketball, it looked like the last game. Right? You know that game when you go and play and you get to like, they're done. Everybody's, they're done. Guys aren't getting back. You know, they're pretending like they're playing defense. They just throw a hand up. It's terrible. But I think what we have is a generational problem. And again, or maybe this is the first time I've said this here, Doug Gottlieb in for Colin, this is the herd. I don't blame guys that are in their 20s, right? Because this is all a reflection of how we feel in our 40s. Right? They react to how somehow we felt like our childhood, or we didn't like. I mean, and now we look back, we're like, man, I kind of liked how I grew up, or whatever. But the way that basketball players specifically are treated at such a young age, if you don't like that All-Star game, the crazy part about it is you go and look at. I coach youth sports. I have a AAU program, and you go to All-Star camps. There's no teaching anymore. And there's no defense anymore. There's no passing anymore. At least occasionally they'll get aggressive because they don't want to get embarrassed, when they're somehow on YouTube. But this is what all-star games look like throughout the pantheon of levels. It really does. We have a generation of players that take honor for granted. Right? Like, the greatest honor you can have is to be told you're one of the 24 best players in the NBA. Right? There's 8 billion people, 4 billion men or boys, males. Right? And of those 4 billion, there's 450 NBA players. And you are the 24 best in the world. And for that honor, you receive untold millions of dollars in contract. You get free everything. We take care of you. We treat you like you're absolute gold. And all we ask of you is for 2.5 hours, 3 hours on a Sunday night. Could you at least, for a little bit, guard somebody? Just give me a sense that you give a damn. But you don't. You don't. You take honor for granted. And this is a societal problem. Right? When we allow it and continue to allow it, and you're like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? In the NBA, they have to have an all-star game because they make a lot of money on it. But at some point, it just becomes a level of embarrassment. Right? LeBron said, I think it's something we need to figure out. Obviously, from a player's perspective, it's fun to get up and down. But at the end of the day, our competitive nature doesn't have free-flowing scoring like that. Like, bro, you're LeBron. This is your league. Right? And part of it is LeBron has always said, man, I just want to be liked by people. Like, that's not really how it works. It's a direct reflection of the leaders of the league as far as players. If you want to be a players-run league, well, then we're all screaming out, you guys are embarrassing yourselves. Because at least the Harlem Globetrotters are funny. And look, you're amazingly talented, but that was just a terrible watch. And then on top of that, here's Jaylen Brown, who, Jaylen Brown coming out of college should have been in the slam dunk contest. Jaylen Brown now should not have been in the slam dunk contest. Here's Jaylen Brown when he's asked about the NBA's 65-game minimum for postseason awards.
I do believe that if you win any type of award, I think you should have to play a significant amount of the season. Like, we got guys who play half the season and win MVP. I'm not a big fan of that, but maybe 65 games might be a little too severe. You know, maybe they lessen it to 58 or something like that, or something a little bit less. 65 is a little bit tough, but I definitely think that to win awards, you should play for majority of the games.
You should play a majority of the games, just less of a majority of the games. There's less than a majority game, right? Well, by majority, what do you mean? Well, there's 82 games, so majority. Are you trying to say, okay, you got to play 42? Oh, look, I think you need to really play to get those awards. Just not that much. Oh, Jalen's new contract is going to make $286 million guaranteed over 5 years. How do you make that money? You make that money from showing up every night. I don't know. I love basketball. I'm blown away by these guys' talent. I don't understand it. I don't understand how they don't watch it. And it's one of those things where like we're all pointing out the problem, but all it comes from is this is LeBron with who his coach is, right? Boy, this is a real issue. I wonder how this is going to get fixed. The only way it gets fixed is if LeBron James and Kevin Durant and all this. I mean, they looked like. I mean, that's why Damian Lillard flourishes because you don't play any defense. You don't have to. And there's a trickle down to all that. I'm not going to sit here and go, what about the kids? But kids do what they see on TV, what the best of the best do. And we have raised a generation of people who are never held accountable. It's incredibly difficult. When you're an AAU coach, if you're too demanding and you don't have the buy-in from the parents, like you can't sit a kid if he's not passing. If you do, he goes to another team. The same thing happens in high school. The same thing happens in college. And in the NBA, if you're too mean, the player we want players to be able to demand where they're going to play. This is what you get. This is what you get. Player run league, right? Okay, well, your product stinks. You make your money because of the volume of games you have in the regular season. You make your money because this is a big corporate sales sort of event celebration of the sport. And all you get is, I mean, even people that complain about, it's snowing in Indiana. It's February, dude. Like, what do you expect? Indiana is as good a city to have a convention or a big event as any in the entire world. Ask anybody. They know how to do it. Yeah, the weather's bad. All right. It's basketball. It takes place in the winter. Inherently, you're going to have spouts of bad weather. It's not football. It's not that big a deal. Just the constant complaining nothing's good enough and then not even putting the effort or energy towards it to act like you're honored by being there. I really think that's it. I am not old man, get off my lawn. I'm speaking for all reasonable people. We've raised a generation of people that take honor for granted.